All right. We are live again. We are on Twitch and YouTube and I don't know, LinkedIn. What are the other ones there? Twitter or X. So we are live. So today I want to do something a little bit different. Last week we did some building with Hono and 11T and some HTMX and so forth. I want to get right into building today. Just get as far as we can, hopefully learn some new things along the way. We're going to be playing around with Hono again. Hono has sort of become my sort of default favorite backend framework right now. So we'll play around a little bit with that. And then I also want to show you something I've been working on called Fraglets, which again is just a thing to help you build template, just a templating engine like Nunjux. Is basically built on top of Nunjux. But yeah, let's get into building some stuff. So again, I'm Jeremy Daly, by the way, if nobody or if you don't know. Comments are open. It would be great if we could get some comments today. Would love to hear get people's feedback, ask questions. I will do my best to answer them as I stumble through building and coding live. So let's get into it. So I've got a basic Ampt project set up here. Rather than going through all the steps of setting things up, which is not the difficulty of getting Ampt set up. It's the problem is getting things like getting things like Tailwind set up and just getting those things configured. So just quickly to show you what I have is I've got this document here, my package.json. Actually, we'll call this SSR demo here. So we'll name this, and then we can just call this SSR demo as well. SSR demo. Guess I didn't set that part up. Okay, so essentially what we do is, or what we have is a package.json where we've got the main set to index.tsx. We have a type module. This is a standard way because everything's ES modules. It's the way we do it in Ampt. I have this dev script that runs this parallel dev. I actually have this one for templates commented out right now, or won't start. We'll get into that in the pre-compiling, but basically just a dev and a build script. This is the for CSS for compiling Tailwind for us, and then I just have two dependencies installed here: Fraglets, which we won't use right away, but I'll get to that, and then Hono, and then just some types, and then the things that we need here for Tailwind to work correctly, and then we just have this our little Ampt section here that tells us that we're in the demo org and that the SSR demo, or that the name of the app is SSR demo, and then in terms of our post CSS and Tailwind configs, those are just set up to basically work, just as you would normally set those up. So those are configured for us. And then we have our TS config where we've added the JSX and the JSX import source as Hono JSX. We're going to use JSX in the beginning to start doing some templating, and then we'll move over to Fraglets after that, just because I think it's kind of cool, and it's a little bit easier to use, I think, and easier to do some of the locality of behavior. That is a pretty interesting concept. So anyways, so those are just the setup files, nothing really fancy there. And then we have our index.ts here. This is just Hono. We import from Hono, grab this, create a new app. I put together a get route here, just says hello world, and then app.fire, which is just that's the integration for if you're using fetch-based application. So good thing I can think this morning. So Ampt, the way that it does it is we patch the node runtime to be fetch compliant or web standards compliant. So all right, so I'm going to open up my terminal down here, and I'm just going to run Ampt in the terminal. This will go ahead and connect to my developer sandbox for me, which is a completely isolated sandbox, or an isolated isolated account running on AWS, and I get this URL for it here. So if I go ahead and open this URL, and just make sure that I target the right browser, open this URL here, this will go ahead and load my hello world like that. So pretty straightforward. Let me go ahead and put on do not disturb here because I do not want people disturb me while we're doing this. Okay, so let's build something with this. One of the really cool things that Hono has is you can import this FC, which is their functional component style or type, I guess, from Hono /JSX. Like this, and then what this allows us to do is actually build components. So we can say, let's call this base, and we want to make it of type FC, and then this will essentially just equal a function that takes props, props like this, and then should return some HTML. So and here we'll say just H1, and I'm going to just say hello from Ampt like this. All right, so what we've done is we've created this base component here, and now within our route, instead of returning actual HTML, we can just return this base component like this. And if we save this and then jump back over, and by the way the sandbox work or the sandboxes work in Ampt is this will sync as soon as you save. So this is pushing it up to your developer sandbox, all running in the cloud, and it's all up there for you. So if we refresh this now, we'll get this hello from Ampt, which is the H1 tag, and we can inspect this over here if we want to see the network and refresh that. And because I only got do all. Here we go. And the response is just this hello from Ampt. Okay, so what's cool about this though is because of the way that these components work, because they're JSX components, they can be nested, which is super handy. So if we wanted to, let's actually do this. Let's create an actual base template here. So we'll say HTML. It didn't work. Let's see here. HTML like this. There we go. All right, now we should be able to do a head, and we'll say title, and I'm going to put in here props.title, and this is just regular JSX, so you're probably familiar with this if you've ever done React, and then we'll go ahead and put a body in here, and then we will say props.children like this, and if we want to, let's put our header in here. So H1, hello from base, like this. Okay, so what we've done is we've just created this base component. If we save this, again, we're spitting base out there. So if we refresh it over here, it'll say hello from base now. But essentially what we can do, which is pretty cool, is we can go ahead and wrap this like this, and then we can put whatever other JSX we want in here. So if we wanted to do div and say this is body content like this, save that, go over here, refresh, and now we have this as body content. So pretty cool, right? We can do this, and we could build all kinds of these different components, and we can nest these components. We can do things with those if we wanted to add in some CSS. So we would want to do what do we want to do here? We want to do include, no, what am I thinking? Style. Will that work? No, I don't want to do a style tag. I want to, oh, I know. All right, I want to link style sheet, and we want to link to, and by the way, what I'm doing is just creating a link to the style sheet here for what we're generating from Tailwind, which we're sending to static/css/styles. So this needs to be css/styles.css like this. And so whenever you put something into the static folder, this static folder over here, this will actually automatically create a route for it. It routes it at the edge, so it loads a static file versus loading a dynamic file and so forth, or trying to access the compute. So this will just go ahead and pull from that. So we don't have, technically I should delete this here. So I'll delete this because we don't need that right now. So we've got our style sheet linked here. If we go over here though and refresh it, we'll see that the style sheet doesn't exist. So one of the things that we have with Ampt is the ability to run this dev mode. And when you run this dev mode, essentially it'll run whatever is in ampt:/dev here. In this case, we're having it run these parallel scripts, but basically it's just running this dev CSS, which is watching as we make changes to the files. So if we come over here now, that style sheet should be there. We're not getting any styles because that's the way that Tailwind works. But if we go in here and we add any classes, so let's add a class for text, text, and we'll say 3XL, and we'll do text, we'll say blue equals 500. And let's add a little bit of padding down the bottom. And my cam link is being weird, so if my screen flashes out, I apologize for that. So padding bottom of, say, 4. All right, so I'll save this. And then what that will do is that'll go ahead and recompile that CSS for me and publish that CSS. So then when I'm over here on this screen and I refresh it, I'll now get this, I'll get that style there. So, and the reason why we have that set up is, or the way it works is we're looking at all TS files as well as any of our template files, which we haven't created yet, but we're going to do that in a second. Okay, so so that's the first part of it. So one other thing that I want to just quickly show before we jump into the Fraglet side of things is HTMX. So we'll go to htmx.org, and there's a quick start here that basically says we just need to copy this script, which we will do, and we'll paste this into our head here. All right, so now we have HTMX, and now we can do things like in here, for example, we can do hx get. And we'll create a route that says / I don't know, clicked like this. And I think that's all we actually have to do. Yeah, the swap. So this will by default swap the inner HTML, but that's fine. So we do this, we publish it, we come back over here, or we save it, sorry. And now when we click on this, this will try to run this clicked command, but there is no route / clicked. So over here, we can just add in app.get. Clicked, does it automatically, and return you clicked me. Perfect. Save that. That's published. Refresh. Click on this. You clicked me. All right. So that's basic sort of how HTMX works, how Hono components work, things like that. But one of the things that really struck me about one of these essays that was written on the HTMX site, and again, you know, how you feel about HTMX versus front-end frameworks like Next or full-stack frameworks like Next, or using React or Vue or things like that. There's reasons, I think, to use different ones. I am really a big fan of just using Hypermedia. And again, you know, I've built a lot of things with Vue in the past, but they're heavy. There's just a lot kind of going on there. But one of the things that was really interesting was this post by Carson Gross, who's the creator of HTMX, about template fragments. And the idea behind this was essentially to say this concept of locality of behavior, right? That if you're building something, you want to be able to, you know, see what's different based on different states, as opposed to creating a bunch of different components. So in this case here, and again, these, you know, I created this component here. If we wanted to, we could come over here and create a components directory, and then we can take this base component like this. Actually, I'm just going to make this easier. So I'll create a new folder, a new file here, and I'll call this base.tsx like this. We'll paste this in. I'll get rid of this because we don't need this. And then we just want to make sure we have this FC style here, and then we'll just do export const base like this. So we can go ahead and do this, and I'm going to say hello from base component. All right, so essentially what we just did here is we've just taken this component and we've just, you know, made it reusable, and we can pull it in anywhere we want. Then over here we could get rid of base because we don't need this, and instead with this we can just lazy load this. So we can just do await import component base dot that. We shouldn't need to do that. We should just be able to await. Again, one of the things that we're going to run into here is that top level awaits are going to give us errors here. So what we actually could do, which would be which is sort of a better way to do it, I think, or at least this is how I, especially if you're optimizing for like running on Lambda functions and you want to make sure your cold starts are great, await this here. Why is this not bringing it in? It says an import path can only end with TSX when, okay, I think if we get rid of this, this will work, right? Yeah, okay. And it doesn't like this. It does not have a construct or signatures. That should work, but there's any number of reasons why I'm getting something wrong here, so I'm just going to refer to a cheat sheet to make sure that I'm not doing something wrong. Let's see. Okay, so components, I am exporting that as, oh, did I not do async? Maybe I didn't do async. I guess that doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be async. And let me just check how I'm importing this over here. Wait, import main. Const, yeah, so this should work. Const base, I guess maybe I have to say that it's FC like this, and then equal, oh, I know. Destructuring, I'm exporting it as a name, that's why. Okay, like that, sorry. So this will work, right, where we can now lazy load this and bring in just this base module when we need it. And I think, so the import here, this will cache it. Node will cache this behind the scenes, so you're not importing the same file over and over again if you were using it in multiple places. And of course, you could just import it, outside of this. But this way, only when this route is accessed will it go ahead and try to import it if it doesn't already exist. So again, this is the same exact thing. Go back over to here, refresh this, and this should say hello from base component. So. Anyways, so cool, like it's a useful way to do that, and then again you can bring in whatever components you want, you can nest them, and part of the cool thing here as well is that like this is JSX, so anything you can do in JSX. So if we said let's do const user FC props like this, and we'll just say return, but we do return user and then props dot I was going to say name or something like that. So if we did this, right, so now within here rather than that, we'll keep that as well so we have it, but so we can do this, like pass in username John Doe, and this will pass that prop through, and this works. So then when we come over here and we replace or refresh this, we'll get user John Doe, but then we can do cool things like we could say const users, and let's see, make an array of users. I love how it fills stuff in for us there. And then if I remember how to write things in JSX, or it'll just do it for me, which is even better. Let's see, almost right. What am I missing? That? Something like that. Okay, so yeah, so now it's going to map over this users array and pull out user.name, send that in as name, and then I refresh this over here, and now I get those two users. So this stuff fascinates me. I think it's pretty cool, and you can do some really great stuff by using these components. And of course, again, this particular thing remains interactive with HTMX. Okay, so now I want to kind of move past this a little bit though, because this is this idea of these template fragments. In order to build this, you have to build out each one of these components as like a separate thing, right? Like, and so I'm sure you could do some magic in there and write some functionality or write some conditionals that say, well, only return this part back, if I pass in something and whatever. But it just seems really messy to me. The other thing is I'm not 100% sure how efficient some of this stuff is. If you go to the Hono site, because you are converting. Let's see where it is, guides. You are converting, you are converting, let's see where it is, guides. You are converting, 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 you are converting You are converting this to TypeScript to JavaScript. I'm not sure exactly how these functional components actually compile down. There is something about memoization. I always come up with these words that I got to read on here that are so hard to pronounce, where you can use this memo thing. So I think what it does is it renders it and then it caches it, and but I'm not sure if it remains dynamic. Like, I don't know if it caches the output or if you can still use it dynamically. I haven't really played around with it a lot. I mean, there's a bunch of cool things you can do. Again, if you like JSX, you want some of this functionality, this looping capability, this is really nice. I think a lot of people are familiar with it. It's a great template syntax if you want to do that. But one of the things that they mentioned on this HTMX thing here, maybe I should zoom in because it's kind of small, sorry. So this idea of essentially how, when you look at something like this, you have a template, your entire template is there, you kind of can see the entire layout of a page or what is happening there, and then based off of different things that happen, you can switch, if contact is archived, then show this, versus if it's, something else, show this. And then the problem, though, is that if you want to render just the button for that, you don't, if now I just want this, like I just want this thing right here. I just want to re-render this if something on my template changes. It really doesn't give you the capability to do that if you're just using something, which again is why he mentions this idea of like, well, maybe I can include something. So now I include this little, thing, include, I guess, that does something very specific. So now I can say, okay, well, this archive UI has these two things. But the problem is you look at this, you look at this as a whole, and you're like, okay, well, if I want to change something to do with, the unarchive button or the archive button, I have to go now and find this archive.ui or -ui.html and go in and make a change to that. Same exact concept here. It's like, okay, well, maybe I have this user component, right? And that user component is nested under here, and then I got to go look at that user component. And look, there are a whole bunch of really great languages out there, or frameworks. Like Astro is really cool, like putting together your, you can write, your templates in JSX, but then you have sort of like a front matter thing where you can control some stuff and add some controls in there and do some really interesting things with that. There's like the idea of co-locating, or what do they call it, scoping your styles. So there's a bunch of really, really cool things that are here on Yes. Thank you, Ben, for telling me that it was. I did figure that out. Yes, I was exporting it as a named variable, and I was trying to import it as the default. So thank you for that. We did figure it out. But so essentially so the idea of having scoped styles and some of those other things, I think they're really cool. Like I love that idea. I think that works for a lot of different things. But it also, sometimes maybe overkill. Like, I mean, do you really need to scope a style just for this user thing? And also, if you're using Tailwind, I don't know. I really like that locality of behavior aspect of it. So anyways, essentially what the argument here is that we need fragments, that we need to be able to say, okay, this little section here, I want this to be reusable outside of the template, but I don't want to create a separate template and import that into that template. That's just a lot of overkill, a lot of overhead that you don't necessarily need, and you're kind of jumping around mentally in order to do that. And templating languages are pretty smart. I mean, there's quite a bit of functionality that's built into this. So the argument here is that you build a fragment, and then you can just render this fragment if you need to. Essentially, he's got a thing that he calls chill templates, but essentially the idea is, you say, I want this, I want the archive UI, just that, and it just renders that particular piece of it. Talks about a bunch of different libraries. So, Go has something that uses blocks, Java, PHP, Python, .NET, and Rust. I don't know if he just left out JavaScript on here, but I couldn't find anything that was great either, that did that idea of the sort of the block level stuff or the fragment stuff. So if you're familiar with Nunjux, which is, I love Nunjux. I think it's a great templating language. You can do template inheritance. You can do all kinds of really, really interesting things with it. It's a super powerful templating language, right? So you have ifs, you have macros, which are cool. You can pull things in. So you can write a lot of logic in the templates themselves. And I always look at it like I try to minimize the template, the logic that goes into a template, but I do like the way that it gives you, especially flow control. I think that's an important thing. One of the major things that they have here, though, for template inheritance is this idea of blocks, where essentially you basically define a block, and then anything that's within that block, when you extend it, when you extend that template, you can override those blocks. So it's sort of a nice way of being able to. I don't know if you can see this, so because this is zoom in a little bit here, but essentially it's very yeah, sorry, right here. It's good functionality. It works really, really well. So the problem is that it doesn't handle the fragment piece for you. You can't just render a block by itself. You have to sort of you jump through some hoops in order to do that. So something that I built recently, and just been working on this. Search for it, see if I can find it. NPM over here is this thing that I called fraglets, not frag lattes or fraglates or some other pronunciations. Maybe I should have thought through it a little bit more. So I just released this. But the idea is that this is just nunjucks, but it adds a bunch of functionality on top of it, where essentially you can render just the template itself like this. Or you can render the fragment of it. So and there's a whole bunch of cool things that we can do with that. And again, this is just a way to do it. So I really like this idea. So I want to show this to you. So and we're going to build something cool with it, I hope. All right, so I'm going to create a template, or I think templates directory is probably the right way to do that. So let's create a templates directory, and then I'm going to get rid of this stuff here. We don't need functional components. So I'm going to remove all of this here because we don't want, we'll leave the clicked one there just for now. We will do return c.html test for now. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to import this, we want to import fraglets from fraglets, so just call it like this, and then what we need to do is we need to oh, actually, hold on, let me make sure I got this right because it's relatively new. Well, I guess like we can look at the documentation, will tell us, right? So this says, no, import fraglets from fraglets and then do this. Okay, so we'll copy the documentation. I already did this once, probably should do that. So fraglets from fraglets, okay. And then, so we're gonna create two directories. We're gonna have a templates directory and a precompiled directory. So I'm gonna not use the precompiled directory for now. We'll get to that in a minute. But essentially, we now have this templates directory, and I'm going to create a new file in here, and I'm just going to call this base.html. And then we can go into this component over here. Actually, we're going to copy this so that we have our base.html. We'll paste this in like this. Maybe this will format better for us. All right, and so the way that that nunjucks works is it uses this handlebar syntax. So all of this stuff we want to stay the same. And then we'll say hello from base component. I'm going to say base HTML component. And then instead of props.children, we just pass, this isn't wrapping anything, so we just pass whatever we want in here. So we're just going to say content for now. Okay, so we've created this base template, and then over here now, if we want to use that base template, we can go ahead and we'll say const base equals await fraglets.render base, and then the title. Because again, so the way that this works is the first thing you pass in is just the name of the template here, and then whatever you want for the variables to populate into that template. So here we'll say Ampt and fraglets like this. Okay, so that should be it, and then we just need to render that. So then we'll just render the base like this. Output that base. Okay, so that should work. Let's see if it does or if it doesn't. Refresh internal server error, perfect. Let's see what we got here. So this is saying template not found base because it's called base.html, which is helpful if we type the right thing in, try that again, refresh, and hello from base HTML component. Okay, so we're just passing in the title, and as we saw in the actual thing itself, or in the template itself, we can go ahead and pass in content. If we did that, now that content will load there. Okay, so we have spent a half an hour. We've learned a couple of things. Hopefully, if anybody wants to play around with even what we've got so far, like there's a lot that you can do. But I want to build something and show you how we can use this functionality to do something pretty exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a block here, and I'm just going to name this block content. And then I'm going to end block like this and save this. Okay, so now what I've got here is I've created a block, end block of content, and I just have the base. So this is just going to give me this base, this header thing here. I don't need to do anything special with that. But now what I want to do is create another template. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. Now again, we talked about locality of behavior. Like you could just duplicate this everywhere, or you could just bring this in as an include, or maybe you just want to bring in that header stuff. If you're creating a much more complex template and you just want to have, sort of like page sections or something like that that you want to change, then it would probably make sense to break it up the way that I'm going to do this. So what I'm doing is I'm going to create another template called user.html, and actually I should create this users.html like this. And then I'm going to use, this is just nunjucks, where we say extends, and we want this to extend the base.html template for us. And then what we can do is we can tell it, okay, here's our block, block content, content like this. And then I'll just say, let's see, h1, hello, h1, and then end our block. See if that formats for me. It did not. Okay, so what this should do now is if I jump over to this, and I'm just going to change this now to users, save that. And then when I refresh this over here, this will give us the same exact template. Well, I took out the hello, but basically this is giving us that same template. So here, if we were to do, class equals text red, like this, then when we refresh this, we now get the updated version of this. So anyway, so now the idea is to say, look, let's keep the base and what's happening there. We'll keep that separated. Now, of course, you could load separate style sheets, whatever you want to do, but let's actually build something interesting here. So a couple of things. Now that we've got this block, we're just replacing this block. We want to go ahead and build, I don't know, maybe like a user interface. All right. So let's do a h1 here, and we will call this. We'll say this is users, like this, and we can add some class equals. Let's see, text 3XL, font bold. Now, again, I know some people don't love this Tailwind syntax or the idea of putting all of your styles like right where it happens, but again, when you're building stuff like this, to me, it's so much easier than going and updating a style somewhere else. Like I love this. So again, maybe I don't think I'm in the minority, but I don't know. I know some people like to do different things. All right, so I'm gonna do font bold. Let's do text color. Oops, not text color. Remember how to do this. So we'll stick with blue, 500, and then we'll do just PB. Let's do 4 like this. Okay, so then what we want to do is, and that's got to be closed. Okay. All right, so now, again, this is not going to be anything exciting other than it's just going to spit out our users. Let me make sure that this isn't too big. Okay, yeah. And then so here's the other thing we can do, right? So I want to add a little bit of padding around this base here, so I'll go in and I'll make the padding, let's do P3 like this, and then refresh this over here. And then I got my little bit of padding here. Okay, so let's build some interactivity though, because that's what we want to be able to do here. All right, so we got our users there. Let's go ahead and generate some users. Like actually, let's do something with some users. So I'm going to just put a div here, and I'm going to create a new block that I'm going to call users, like this. And I'm going to close this block out. End block. All right, and then I'm going to show something quickly here. So I'm going to just put, this is a placeholder. Oops. I got my keyboard over to the side here, and it's not the best way to type. Holder for the users block, or for users. Okay, so we've got this here like that. All right, so now if we go and we render this like this, this is a placeholder for the users. Okay, because we're rendering the entire template itself, but this is where things get pretty cool. So what I want to do is I'm going to add, let's add a button. Actually, I don't even need to do that. Oops. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put a div around here and a div around there, and I'm gonna say hx get and / users like this, or actually I'm gonna do that clicked like that. Okay, so right now this would replace, if I think this should work because we already had that other one in there. So if I click this, I guess it's clicked, right? Save that back over here. So if I click this, this will say you clicked me, right? But this is replacing this. It's just replacing what's inside this click thing here, right? Like we're not doing anything different. So what I actually want to do is I'm going to do a conditional, and I'm going to say if, let's say if clicked. How about that? Spell it right. Clicked. So if clicked, which means that if a variable called click exists, then let's display this. So we're going to font bold, just you click the button. Okay, great. And then this we actually want to say otherwise. So else display this thing that wants us to click the clicked thing here. Now, if I save this and I refresh this page here, this is going to give me the placeholder because that click didn't exist. If I click this, it's still going to say you clicked me because we haven't changed the functionality behind the scenes. So let's go and do that. So now where this says clicked, rather than saying return just you clicked me, a couple of things that we want to do. First of all, I'm going to go back to the users here, and we want to say hx swap. And this is going to be outer HTML like this. So this will replace the entire outside of it. Because for example, if I was to do class and said text red like this, if I didn't have this, so I'll just comment that out for a second and then I'll refresh. So this is placeholder for new users. If I click this, it'll say you clicked me. So this is just replacing the inner part of it. But if I change this and refresh it like this, then when I say you clicked me, this is replacing the outer part of it, which is what we want, because we want to replace that whole thing. But what we want to do is we don't want to say this is clicked. We want to say you click the button and have it actually replace with this fragment of the template. So what we can do is go into the index page here, and then essentially what we want to do, and this is sort of a shortcut. I mean, you can do it like this, where you spit it out and then replace it that way. Or because the way that Hono works with their HTML component, it'll actually automatically await anything that's in this, which is pretty cool. We do not want it to render clicked.html. We want it to render users, and then we want it to render the fragment users. And we want to make sure that there is a value called clicked in there, and we can just set this to true like this. And we've got extra junk we don't need, so return, we're missing, not extra junk, we're missing that. Okay, so now we have this there. We got a nice little error to let us know that something was wrong. So now when we hit clicked, this is going to it's going to load the users fragment, or the users block, from the users.html file, It's going to pass in clicked true as a value that's part of that. And then what that should do is then should render just that part of the template for us. So now we refresh this. We got this, I click this, and now it says you click the button. So so that's sort of the power of fragments, and all of it is within the same system, which is really, really nice. Okay, we got about 20 minutes left, so let's go ahead and see if we can actually build something on here. Okay, so we've got users. I don't really care about the users clicked or not, so what I'm gonna just do for now is let's do this. So we're gonna create, we got a div, and I'm gonna create, let's add some styles first. So we'll say class border, and we'll do padding. Yeah, we'll do padding 2, just so there's some space around that. And then we're gonna do a loop in here. So we're gonna say for users in, or for user in users, we're gonna go ahead and loop over and then end the for loop like this. We're going to spit out div like that, and we'll do class border B. Yeah. And we can do padding 2 as well. And then we'll spit out the user dot name like that. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're looping over something called users, spitting out the user.name. So save this. When I go and refresh this over here, this isn't going to give us anything. So what we want to do is pass in some users that it can actually use. So up here, rather than just saying passing in the title and then the content. So let's change this actually. So this is a little bit more fun, and we can say user manager. How about that? And then we don't have any content in there. But here's something we do want to do. We want to pass in an array of users. It'll fill in a bunch of stuff for us, like that. Okay, that's actually pretty good. And it doesn't like this because it doesn't need. Oh, what do we do here? Comma. We need that. And then the end of that. Okay, there we go. All right, so now what we're doing is we're passing in user manager as a title, then we're passing in a list of users with a bunch of names here. If we go over here and refresh, now all those names will go ahead and generate for us, right? So that's just the template doing that work for us. Again, I like the idea of something like simple template behavior working, and that's fine. The other thing that I want to do though is it would be great to have this load from a database. So I'm going to install at ampt/data like this, and then I'm going to import data from at Ampt data like that. And then what we're going to do is when we load this page here, it's a couple different things we could do. We could load the users outside of the rendering here, or we can load them inside. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to load them outside for now. I'm going to say const users equals await data get start at users. We don't have any users yet, but we're going to do that. And then what we'll do is we will pass in the users here. So we can just do it like this. We don't actually have to do anything there. One thing that we will see though is when we do, if we log out the users like this, if we were to load this page now, we won't have any users that will show, and this will show us that it is blank like that. And so again, it also shows us that it's items, right? So one of the things that we probably would need to do, and then this is if we don't want to map it and do some other functionality here, but if we did users.items like this, then that would loop over the individual users that way. Okay, so we're going to do that. We need some users now. So let's go ahead and we can do this through a couple different ways we could do this, but let's do the first way. We'll just enter them in manually so that we can see that. So if we type in open here, this will open us up to our dashboard and to the instance of this that we're running. And of course, it's going to ask me to log in. So give me a second. Sorry, oh, never mind. I'm already logged in. So here we are. Looks like there's some changes here. All right, so I'm going to go into data, and there is nothing in data. Get all items. This is empty. All right, so let's add an item, and we want to call this users : and let's just do 1, 2, 3 to start with, and then we want to add in here a name, and this is JSON, so it does need to be valid JSON. I know you probably can't see this, which is really small. Name, and then we'll just say John Doe, like this, and then go ahead and save that. All right, so now we've got a user John Doe over here. If we jump back over to our page and refresh, we are seeing nothing, but we are getting something back. It's because the items has a key and a value. So a couple different ways we can do this. We could handle this here and make sure that when we pass in users into the template, that we're only actually passing in the values, right? So if we wanted to, map this here, user, and then I guess we would return user.value, like that. Yeah, that actually would work. Then this should work over here now. When we refresh this, we'll just get the John Doe. So that's one way we can do it, easy enough. Or we could tell the template that we need the dot value, however we want to do it. We can do different ways. We'll leave it like this for now. Okay, so we know that we're spitting out some users here. And then the other really cool thing that we can do is I can just run this export command. This will spit out this data.json that gives me the information about John Doe. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll do ID here, and we'll call his ID 123. Like this. Got to make sure we have that. And now we can go ahead and create more users this way. This is just a, because we're trying to do a demo, and we're trying to do it fast. So we can do user 1, 2, 3, 4, and this will be Jane Doe, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I forget what the other user was called. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's call this Sam Smith. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So save that. All right, now all we have to do is run import. Those will import those users. We go over here, and now we have those users that we can play around with. Okay, so far not super exciting. Let's do some stuff with fragments and what we can do with HTMX. So let's go back to our user template here, and let's add an edit button. So we'll put a button in here. And I don't know, this is doing all kinds of, I didn't want to do that. No, I was going to add a bunch of stuff I don't want. So let's do class, and we'll put that in a second and close the button. And we'll say that this is to edit. All right, so now let's see, we'll do BG, I don't know, green maybe, green 500, and we'll make it rounded. And the text will be white, and we'll add some P X3 and PY1 like that. Okay, so now we should have a button to edit every one of these users right next to them, right? So these buttons will do nothing because they're not supposed to yet. So let's make them do something. So let's go ahead and do an HX get. Oops. HX get, and then what we want this to do is we want this to edit that particular user. So I'm going to go to users. I'm just making up a new thing here. We want this to be the user.id, like this. I don't know why there's so many things there. Okay, so user ID, and then we'll say we want this to be edit. Okay, so now if we refresh this, come over here, now when I click edit, I'm going to get that this particular thing doesn't exist. So now we want to make it so that we can actually edit it. So we'll go back over to our index here, and let's add I'm just going to comment that out. We're going to add a new route. We're going to call it app.get, and it's going to be users/ID. It's already guessing this stuff for me. Thank you. And this is going to be edit. Like this, and we now can do, so now when this is edit, right, we want to have the user, in order to get that param there, we do const user ID equals c.params. I don't think that's right. I think it's like this, right? Oh, it's because c.res, I think. c.res. Params. Param? Let's see. c.rec, that's what it is, not res. c.rec. Param, and then ID. All right, so we're passing this in as ID. I'm going to go ahead and call this user ID just so it's a little bit more explicit for our purposes here, and then we'll say user ID like this. Okay, let's see, make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, so now what this will do is this will pull this user ID out from here, and now we want to go ahead and retrieve this user from the database. So now we'll say const user await data.get. I love how it fills stuff in for me. Users, and then the user ID, whatever that user ID was. And then we want to go ahead and render that template. So we want to render just the user section of the template. So I'm going to copy this just so I don't have to write it all again. Oops, Z copy. Okay, so now we want to generate, I'm just going to call this const fragment like this. And this is user render users, and then what I'm going to pass in here is I'm going to pass in the user, and I'm going to pass it in as user.value because that's what should come back from here. I don't know what this is saying. User is type unknown. Okay, well, that's great. I think okay, I think we just do user any. Will that work? There we go. Get rid of that error. Any is such a great way to do it. So now if I do this and I refresh this over here, if I click edit, this is giving me an error Y. It says error code 404, users/1234/edit. Users/1234/edit. That should work. Why is this not working? Oh, did it not sync? Maybe it didn't sync. Oh, probably because we didn't return anything. So c.html, I'm just going to return test for the time being. Come over here, refresh, get rid of that so we can see it, edit. All right, so now we got this back, which is just gave us that test response. All right, so now what we want to do is pass in this information into the template, and then we want to load that. I'm going to say this is user edit, and we'll rename this to user edit as well. Again, just so it's a little bit clearer. Okay, so what this should do is this should pull the user ID from the URL, query that user for us from the database based on their ID, then render that section of the template with the user information in it, and then do that. So that should work for us, right? But what we're going to see here is when we refresh this, when I click edit here, nothing's going to change except that edit button went away. Okay, so interesting. Let's see why. Oh, I know why. Because we are, because we just, that's right, we just changed the information inside here, right? So this response preview, oh, it's actually not returning anything. Why? Oh, because we're not awaiting. Okay, always got to await. Await, there, right. So when we do it outside of it, we have to await. Okay, so if we hit edit, should be returning something to us. It is not. Why? Users. Let's see. Render users that. Let's go ahead and log out. Oops. Oh, it is possible too that we're just not, maybe we're missing something here. Let me go into the users template. This should, oh, okay. All right. So actually, this is exactly why this is working. So this is the users block, and we're trying to send in the trying to render the entire users block. We don't want to do that. We just want to render this section of the block. So let's go ahead and create a new block called user, like this, and then we can end block like that. Okay, so what this will do is this will now give us a new block just called user. So if we refresh this, this gives us exactly what we want to see here. But now what we want to do is in this index file, we want to go into, we want to render just a user within that and do that. So now if we refresh here, we click edit, that's going to try to load it in here because of the way that we've done this. So we've got to target it so that it doesn't load. So that doesn't load within this button, right? So that's just an HTMX thing that we'll do, but we are bringing back hopefully the information we need. So this is bringing back this information right there with edit, and there's no user ID because it's not being passed in. So let's debug this. We'll get this squared away. So somewhere in here we were dumping, where's our user information that we were dumping? Okay, let's clear this. So we're going to use K. Okay, so let's double check here. All right, and we're not. Okay, so what we should be doing is we got to make sure that we are actually getting the user back. So let's do log user like this. So make sure that we are in fact returning the user. So hit enter there, and then we should get user 123. Okay, so now there is no value. That's why we're having the problem, because we are just returning the user itself and not in a loop, not as a collection. So it's just coming back as the user. So we can pass it in that way, or we can pass it in another way. So refresh this. So now when we hit this, it's going to load it inside that button. So now we've got to fix that. So in the users here, we can, I think you can say with this edit, you can target like the outer HTML. That's one way that you could potentially do it. But let me see, what did I do in the past here when I have my edit button? I did build this in the past. So target. Okay. So yeah. All right. So let's do this. So let's go ahead and add a. Let's do this. Let's define an ID on this so that this user block has an identifier, and we'll just call it user dash user.id like this. So now this will have that, and then with this we actually want to HX target this with the user dash user.id like that. Okay, so hopefully this is straightforward. I'll move this down a little bit. But so what we're seeing now is we've got our block of all of our users, and then we loop over that block, and then we loop over another block that has just the user in it with information about the edit button, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that should make sense. We don't need to display this anymore because we know that it is working correctly. And so now we should be able to come over here, refresh, and when I hit edit, target error. Okay, HTMX target error. Let's just inspect and see where we've gone wrong. User HX target user 1234. Okay. Love live coding. Fun. Okay, so HX target user. Oh. This would be helpful if we target it using, you gotta put the pound sign in, that's important. And then the other thing we want to do is we do want to swap the outer HTML. So we'll do swap outer HTML like that. We want to replace the entire thing. Okay, so now this should work. Network over here, so you can see this. So now if I go to edit this, all right, nothing changed, but that's on purpose. So the response was in fact the exact same thing that we rendered when we used when we just render the entire template, right? So now what we want to do is we want to tell it something different. We want to actually be able to edit it, right? So if I go back to my index here, so rather than just passing in this, in just the user, I'm going to pass in edit true like that. All right, so now we're giving our template more information about what we want to do. So now we're in this block here. We're saying this is our user. Now I'm going to create another conditional here that says if edit. Oops, spell it right. So if edit, we want to do something, and otherwise, oops, too many things here. Okay, otherwise we want to do something else. We want to render the normal thing, and then end if like this. Okay, save that. Else, I'm going to say div. I'm going to change this in a second to a form, but we'll say border B2. Let's do background or BG red. I like color, red color. Okay, so now we're saying if it's edit, display this. If it's this, display this. And again, this is all part of this idea of, go back to this here, where it's, again, you want to be able to have this sort of these conditionals that are just there. So now I can see that together. So when I'm in this template here, I know it's a little hard to see because probably the screen's a little bit small, but if you're looking at this visually, you say, okay, I've got a block of users that are wrapped in here, and then that loops over, a variable called users, and then in there I have another reusable fragment or a block called users, and then within that, if I'm in an edit mode, I want to do this. If I'm not, I want to do that. So this should all be exactly what we want it to be doing right now. And if I refresh this, now if I click edit, it should replace that entire thing with that different piece there. Now again, there's no JavaScript here. This is all 100%. This is all 100% just using HTMX and some templates on the back end. All right, obviously this isn't going to do us much good if we just replace it with red. We actually want to be able to write something to it. So we'll do the same thing here in terms of wrapping this, but we'll wrap it in a form instead. And then we'll copy this button here, but rather than using it as an edit button, we'll use this as our save button. I'm going to hide this for now because I think we'll use the form to actually do most of this for us. So we'll call this save. It's probably not the right color button, but we'll make this blue like this. And then I think we need to have, let's check my notes over here. Yeah, so we want to, I'm going to copy in some stuff just because I want to make sure we get all this stuff in. So this is something I've done in the past. So we have the ID, that's fine. We got a class. I'm not going to worry about that class there. And then what we want to do is we want to post to user.id. HX target is going to be user.id. We're going to swap the outer HTML like this. And let me save that. Okay, so now we've created a form. So when this form is submitted, we're going to do a put. That's going to put to users/user.id. It's going to target the same ID here, which is also going to be the ID of this. It's going to swap the outer HTML exactly as it's doing down there. And this is going to now display the username, but we want this to actually display in an input. So we'll do input. I don't know why I try to do this because it takes so long. Input text like this. And then the name is going to just be user, or I'm just going to call it name. Hopefully that won't be confusing. I don't think we need any ID there, but we are going to need a value, and that value is going to equal our username or user.name that we have here. And did that work? I probably put something where it didn't need to be. Name button. Okay, I think that should be good. All right, so if I save that, refresh over here, that loads. Now when I click edit, all right, now I get Jane Doe in a separate thing where I can save. Okay, I don't like the red background, so let's get, maybe we'll do like a really light salmon-y background just so that you can see that we're sort of in editing mode beyond the, all right, so we've got, all right, there. Now, of course, when we edit multiple ones, they're all going to change. We could, actually, one of the things we could do, just to make this kind of interesting, is we could add another button. And we're going to call this button, we'll make this yellow. Let's make it orange. These are some terrible colors, I know. I'm not a designer. And I can't spell orange, apparently. Okay, so this, and then we're going to actually make this button is going to say cancel. Oops, cancel like this. And then we just want this to be an HX get. Essentially, we wanted to do this. So hold on, let me just paste this in. So we wanted to do an HX get back to the user ID, swap out the user and cancel. I think that's all we would want to do, right? So now if we refresh this and we hit edit and then we hit cancel, this, it's going back to the edit thing. So actually, all right, so what we want to do is we don't want it to be edit. We just want it to get the actual user. So we'll do this, and then we'll create another route over here that will be just to get a user record, an individual user record. So this will just be /user ID like this. We'll do the exact same thing. We'll render this, but instead of rendering edit true, we'll just render user, just like that. Refresh, hit edit, cancel, and we're back to non-editing mode. Okay, now we just want to go ahead and save this. I know we're over time, so I just want to do this last bit of saving it, and then we can wrap it up. But I don't know, hopefully this is fun. You can build some pretty powerful interfaces with this, and maybe I'll show you the other one that I sort of inspired me to build this particular thing. But okay, so we've got this, so now we need to make sure we can save it. So here we just need to actually do a post. So if we do this and we do Jane Doe 1, 2, 3, I click save, I'm going to get an error because this is posting to a route that's not found. This is going to /user/123 with a put route. So we go back over here. And then let's go ahead and take this like this, and we'll turn this into a put route like this. Now, of course, there's no validation or any of those other things. We could use Zod or whatever we want to do. So this is going to go ahead and put the user information over there. And I believe, just to make sure that what we would want to do is, so we want to parse the body here. So I think the way that this would work is we would get the user ID, and then we want to get the const body of this is going to be rec.parse body like that, and that'll give us the body information. And then the other thing we can do here is we can just do an object.assign. Because we want to make sure that the ID, we're getting the user, the user ID like this, and then we want to bring in the body. So we're just going to basically merge these two things together so that we get all the data that we need here. So I'm going to comment this out for a second, and we'll just say, test, like can't spell test. There we go. Okay, so this gets the body, user ID. Oh, sorry, this is bothering me. This should just be, well, I'll keep it user editor for now, whatever. Okay, so this should give us the body. So if we want to just look and make sure that we're actually getting what we want here, let's do a log like this, and then we'll log out the body like that. And we should be able to bring up our information so we can see it. And so if we post this now, we shouldn't get an error. This should spit back test for us. But over here, we should see that now we're getting the name, which is the updated one, and the ID that is there. So we absolutely would want to do some sort of, some sort of sanitation and something like that. I mean, we would definitely want to be able to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to set the user ID with the body like that, and I will await it, but we don't really have, actually no, we do need to await it because this is cool. So we're going to do const, and we'll say updated like this, and we're going to set that information, and then updated will actually return back the updated version of it. So we're going to go ahead and just say user output here. We're going to render that user again, and this time we're going to render the user with updated, which is just going to give us the updated information we have, and then we can go ahead and do a user output like this. So this should work, I'm guessing. Going to refresh, go to edit, Jane Doe 1, 2, 3, save, and it still said test. Why? Return user output. Oh, because I didn't save it. You got to save things. Okay, let's try that again. Refresh. All right. Oh, but it did save it, so it just returned the wrong thing. So let's say is Jane Doe 1. Hit enter, and nothing loaded there. So let's go ahead and just debug this quickly. So we'll log whatever the updated is and see what we're missing. And hit edit, Jane Doe, save. So we get name Jane Doe. So that should work, but it's not showing here for some reason. When I refresh it, it does. But what am I rendering wrong? Name, right? Users is looking for the user.id and the user.name. So that should be in there. So posting this is just not bringing back, but let's see. Let me just inspect this. Okay, so it's not passing in the user information for some reason. So that's not good. So we need to make sure that we, so when we do the put here, this is spitting back ID and that, and it is waiting for it. So why are we not getting user updated? Let's log our user output here. Sure, I'm doing something silly. Let's try this one. 1, 2, 3, save that. So this is spitting back, but it's not populating this information. Oh, I love making silly mistakes because I got to pass it in as user. All right, so that'll work. But this is how we learn. Refresh. Okay, so we refresh. Now we go into Sam. We'll change his name back to that. We'll save and look at that. Now we've got this, and now we've got this, and now we've got John XYZ like that. Okay, so. All right, so we built an interactive thing. Now, of course, again, you can add delete and you can do all kinds of things with that, but pretty straightforward. I mean, you have the ability to control your routes, do some interesting things around there. Let me see if I can show you one thing super quick. I demoed this yesterday, but when we load this main page, for example, here, and we want to get this user's template, one of the things that we can do is rather than loading the users beforehand. I mean, it's instantaneous, so it's not like it's taking any time. But if we wanted to do this a little bit differently, we could take this, turn this into a stream. So we would just say, we want to load this as a stream. And then rather than loading the users in here like this, we'll just do this instead. So we'll take, I hate when it does that on me. Okay, so we'll create a new thing called users like this. We'll write an async function, not a generator function, so just an async function like that. And then what's this doing? Users information we want to pass in, then another thing here. Oh, that's why. Okay, because we got to close that out, and then that. Okay, so and that should be an arrow function like this. Okay, so what this will do is, right, so this is now a stream. So we actually want to make this a stream like this, and this should, now I'm just going to return from this, return test, and I'll comment this out for a second like that. And then this is saying that base cannot find name base because it's not that. So we actually want to return this as a stream. And I believe, let's see, I'm just going to grab the code here so it's faster. But essentially, it should just be this. So we want to return this as a stream like that with headers. Okay, so when we save this now and I refresh this, this should just come back and say test. But what I can do here is I can actually put this asynchronous call in here. So this is a call to the database like this. And then I just return users like that. All right, so now what that's doing is in a single call now, when I refresh this, that will load them asynchronously. It's clearly not doing something, so I must have broken something, but let me just check. Radiant response. So it's not spitting anything out. Oh, because I'm just getting data.user. No, that should work though, right? Because users is the users is at there, and it's users and users. Let me just double check, make sure that I'm getting my data back correctly. So log. Oh, yeah, this is not going to work because we had to do that thing where we did users is users.map. Map users. User.value. Users dot. Oh, I'm getting there. Users dot items. Items dot map user dot value. Got it. Bang. Refresh. Also didn't work. Why not? What am I getting back here? What did I do? Let me just go back to this for a second. I know I'm doing something silly, so users is going to be users.items.map. Because if I just do users.items, try that again. So users, items. Okay, so this is what I want to do. So I want to do users.items. That's right. And then I want to remap those so that user value. All right, and I'm just gonna do the same thing here to make sure that I'm not crazy. I'm sure I'm crazy, but that's all right. Okay, and then refresh this. All right, so then I should be getting that, and then I'm passing that in as users, correct? Users, and users. All right, I don't know why it's not working, but it should be, and it should be automatically populating that back in. Sorry, I can't let this go. You know me. I'm going to have to figure this out before I can jump off the call with you. So this should be. So this is definitely right. And then, and it's passing it back in as users. So that should be working. Let me try doing, and we know that if it returns test 1, 2, 3, this is going to work. This will, right? So the streaming bit is working. It's just for some reason it's not repopulating into that. Well, I guess I could pull it in like this. Oops, I go back up here and I can return this fragment here of users and pass in users as this here. Sure, I'm doing something very, very dumb, which is frustrating to me. And then I want to return this. Await. Render users there. Close that like this. Oh, okay, well that works. Anyways, I'm supposed to populate back in. I must be passing something in wrong. But why this is cool is, and I'm gonna have to do it this way. Otherwise, Doug's gonna yell at me. Import set timeout from timers.promises. Don't need that. And then over here, if I was to await set timeout of, oops, I'm going to say 2 seconds, refresh this over here, then this will wait 2 seconds before it loads it. So again, if I wanted to put like a pulsing thing in there or something like that. Anyways, the cool thing about this is that again, it essentially it'll load everything in a single HTTP request for you, and then give you all the stuff at the same time. So I was exaggerating that, so I'll take out the exaggeration here, and then when we refresh, we'll see that this all came down in a single request, but all my users actually came down as part of a secondary bit. It didn't come down in the actual request itself. And then this is all, again, stays interactive with HTMX. So anyways, okay, so that was a lot. We went through some interesting things, I hope, but it is very, very cool what you can do with Hono. Again, I love HTMX. I love the idea of template fragments and some of that stuff you can do just with this idea of, sort of the locality of locality of behavior, that you can kind of control all of this stuff in one place. Nunjux is super powerful templating language, by the way, so there's a bunch of cool things that you could do in there as well. And then Russell, hold on, what did Russ say? Because he's probably going to help me out here. I think the async func can just return the array instead of an object with a user prop. You're probably right. I would have to check that. But anyway, so hopefully you learned some stuff, and you learned that there's some cool things you can do with Hono, if whether you want to use components in the JSX syntax, or you want to use templates, or however, you don't need to use fraglets, you can use whatever you want, but there's some cool things you can do there. And then just how easy it is to deploy this with Ampt. So all of this stuff is running in AWS Cloud, right? So this is a separate AWS Cloud account right here, and all of your stuff is running. All your stuff is running in there. You can deploy it. You can to a production account. You can have it hooked up to GitHub and have it automatically deploy for you. So just a lot of really cool things you can do. Anyways, check out getampt.com. Play around with some stuff. Check out the Fraglet stuff. Play around with Hono and some of these other cool libraries that are out there. And let me know what you think about building applications without needing, interactive applications like this without needing to use things like, React or Vue or some of these other front-end heavy, JavaScript heavy front-end languages. I do want to explore Alpine a little bit more. I've seen some cool things where, like making some of these edits changes using Alpine instead of necessarily doing it with an HTTP call. I mean, it's up to you. You can do it any way you want. But I think it's pretty cool. So anyways, that is it for today, and I will see you next week. Please, feel free to reach out to me and chat about Ampt or any of these other things. All right. See ya.